Back with another video. I love golf. Let's get to it.
Oh, you already saw the title. You already saw the thumbnail. It's one of those videos. It's a Jonathan hot take video. Today we're going to be talking about good to great games that I personally just didn't really enjoy all that much. I very much can admit that all of these games are good, but for one reason or another, I just didn't really have a great time with these. And so hopefully I'll be able to properly articulate my points and explain myself. As always, this very much is just my own opinion based off of my own personal experience. Your opinion is just as valuable as mine, so you can let me know down below of some games that you played through that you thought were good, but you just didn't love. Let's get a discussion going. As always, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hype the video, whatever the fuck that means. All support is truly greatly appreciated. Hopefully I don't piss everyone off today. But if I do, I truly apologize and hope you have a tubular rest of your day. Anyway, let's get to the games. We're going to start out strong here with the game Inside. I'm pretty sure one of my hottest gaming takes overall is that I just don't really enjoy Inside very much. Now, I think it's worth mentioning that I love 2D platformers, I enjoy cinematic platformers, and I even enjoyed the developer's prior game Limbo. I actually thought that one was pretty good, and I enjoy it more than Inside. And so it being a 2D platformer doesn't bother me whatsoever. I just never really clicked with this game, shrimple as that. The gameplay certainly never wowed me, the level design didn't have me on the edge of my seat, I didn't think there was a bunch of great set pieces here, and the story I didn't find gripping really at all. Outside of the last few minutes. Maybe I just completely missed the point here. This might just be a situation where it flew over Jonathan's head and he couldn't use his critical thinking skills to see the deeper meaning here or something. Maybe I need to go watch some analysis video or something like that. I still think the game has plenty of good elements to it. It controls well enough. It actually does have a nice aesthetic, and the atmosphere at times was getting to me with how unsettling it is, and the last few minutes of the game are pretty crazy, but the rest of it, yeah, I don't know, it just really wasn't doing it for me. Oftentimes a 2D platformer lives and dies by its level design and set pieces, and I don't think Inside has anything all that special. Like, it's not bad. There's not a sequence or section of the game that I can point at and go, oh yeah, that sucked, that totally sucked. But at the same time, there's nothing I can point at and go, wow, that was great, that was incredible. Again, outside of the last few minutes. Everything was just kind of whatever for me. It just kind of felt like I was going through the motions, and nothing particularly stood out to me. At the beginning, it is a little shocking when you're getting chased by the dogs, but that quickly goes away. And it low-key feels like you're just kind of meandering through these environments, and again, nothing really stood out to me. If we're being 100 here, I actually had to look up some snippets of gameplay and levels because the level design really was just that forgettable to me. I could not remember a number of these areas to save my life. And outside of the last 5 minutes, I don't think this game had a huge defining set piece like Limbo did with the big-ass spider. And obviously, I've alluded to this big set piece towards the very end of the game. I'm not going to spoil it. It's easily the coolest moment of the entire game, and I think it's the reason a lot of people really enjoy Inside. They enjoy what happens at the end, and while I thought it was pretty cool and memorable also, it doesn't make up for, you know, like 2 to 3 hours of just meh, at least in my opinion. The game absolutely does have its merits, and I can see why some people like it. They like how unsettling and disturbing everything is, how dark and grim and bleak the game is, and maybe the puzzles and level design really resonated with them. But that just wasn't me. And while I can appreciate Inside, it's not a game that I'm particularly giddy about like plenty of other games. So here's one that might ruffle some feathers. I may even lose subscriber, but that game is Grand Theft Auto 4. And before you go, oh, you cringe beta cuck, let me explain myself for a second here. I still think Grand Theft Auto 4 is a pretty great game. I would still say it's one of the better Grand Theft Auto games overall. But I would be lying to you if I said I enjoyed most of my time with the game. The truth is, I didn't, for a few key reasons. What are you doing most of the time in Grand Theft Auto 4? You are driving around, or you are getting into firefights with other people. What are my biggest issues with Grand Theft Auto 4? The driving, the controls, the feel, the physics, the firefights, taking cover, how clunky it all feels. So naturally, yeah, I didn't enjoy a lot of my time with GTA 4. I know there are plenty of people that really enjoy the feel and driving of GTA 4. They really like the realistic approach and even think it's better than GTA 5, and there's nothing wrong with having that opinion. That is your opinion, it is well within your right to feel that way. I just feel completely different. I remember playing this game way back in the late 2000s and just hating how it controlled. I hated how underwater these vehicles felt. I hated the sense of speed, or really lack thereof, and I really missed how arcadey San Andreas felt. I remember after playing just a few hours of GTA 4, I went, man, screw this, I'm going back to San Andreas. I like the controls and feel way more. And then it would be a few years later before I finally came back to the game and actually played all the way through it and just begrudgingly accepted the physics and just how clunky everything can feel at times. The game just feels so heavy in every aspect, and I've never enjoyed this. It's not just the vehicles that feel super heavy, but just walking around also feels heavy. Everything feels delayed, slower, and at times really imprecise. I've also never loved the firefights in this game. Like, taking cover feels okay, but I never thought the weapons felt particularly amazing. I'll be the first to admit that the firefights and really combat in general is way better than what, say, San Andreas had, but I still don't think it feels great. I didn't think that then, and I certainly don't think it now. And even if it is an unpopular opinion these days, I think GTA 5 feels way better in just about every aspect. It was a nice mix of realism and arcadey. And I've always really appreciated that that game could find a nice balance, as opposed to GTA 4 where it feels like it just falls onto one side of the spectrum. Something though that I will very much praise about GTA 4, everybody praises it, is the game's story, writing, and characters. Like, I always thought this was great. I have truly nothing but good things to say about all of that, but GTA 4 is more than just its story and characters. There's also, you know, the moment-to-moment gameplay that I don't particularly love. There was also the 2 standalone expansions to GTA 4, and while I think the stories and characters of those are great also, the gameplay is pretty much the same as GTA 4. Look, I very much did eventually get used to the feel and the physics, and have gone through the entire game, but that doesn't mean that I enjoyed it all that much. I realize this might be a scorching hot take at this point, but hey, I'm just expressing my opinion, so let's move on. So to cool things off here, I have a little bit of a colder take with Gears of War 4. Now, I love Gears of War. Gears 1, 2, and especially 3 are some of my favorite third-person shooters ever, and I actually quite enjoy Gears 5 as well, but Gears 4, I was just never big on this one. Like, yes, it still very much has the pop and stop gameplay that Gears of War is known for. It's still got some of the best cover-based shooting of the entire era, but it really just never quite did it for me. This game always just felt tired, played out, and a bit stale even. I never cared for the story. It felt like it was continuing just for the sake of continuing, and that they were milking a cow way past its prime. It feels like they had already gone to the well too many times, and it felt like they were squeezing whatever was left of Gears of War's DNA. I never liked the main character JD, and the other characters were just kind of forgettable. I think they came more into their own in Gears 5, and I think the decision to make Kat the main character was very much the right one. Because JD, he's just so unlikable. He's so generic and bland, and just wildly uninteresting. I thought the story in general was wildly uninteresting, and the pacing isn't great either. It starts out so slow, and I remember just having a hard time getting into the game. When it comes to the actual gameplay, yeah, it very much was Gears of War's gameplay. Like, this is what you know and love about Gears, but it just doesn't come together in a satisfying way like the other Gears games did. This was the 4th, technically 5th game in the series, and the first one on this next generation, and it felt like it played pretty much identical to the original game. And of course there's the argument of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but I also expect to see a few little innovations here or there, some improvements, some new ideas, something. This game, it just felt like a total rehash, and everything was been there, done that, and it was way better before. And I think Gears 5 had more of the innovation and just new ideas that I really was looking for from this series. I actually think Gears 5 is a pretty solid campaign. Gears 4 though, no. Never loved this, and it felt like I was on autopilot pretty much the entire time. I was just going through the motions, and it has arguably the most forgettable campaign in the entire Gears of War series. I'll low-key even take Judgment's campaign over this, and that really is saying something. As for the multiplayer, I just never really played much of it either. Look, I can see that Gears 4 is a good game. It still has some solid enough gameplay, and from a presentation standpoint, it still is pretty good. I just didn't really enjoy it all that much. So here we got a bit of an older one with Final Fantasy V. I know plenty of people look back very fondly on Final Fantasy V, but I didn't actually play through this game for the very first time until the early 2020s, and there were a lot of things I actually didn't enjoy about this game. There were some things I enjoyed. I thought the music was pretty kick-ass, it looks nice enough, at least on the Pixel remaster, and there are plenty of cool elements to the whole class building system, but I've also got a number of issues with it. The story, yeah, this just didn't do it for me at all. I thought it was so forgettable. Like, this was one of those stories that just went in one ear, out the other. I actually had to look up what the hell even happens here because I just thought it was really generic, and I didn't feel like it had a bunch of interesting, memorable set pieces or characters. Everything was just kind of whatever when it came to the story, at least to me personally. Nothing really resonated with me all that much, and I don't think that's the hottest take. What really didn't resonate with me, though, that is a bit of a hot take, is the whole class building system. This really is like the focus of Final Fantasy V, so me not enjoying it means that I kind of didn't enjoy the focus of the game, therefore by extension the entire game. See, you get to build out your party how you see fit. You assign them jobs and it is completely customizable. In most Final Fantasy games, they just assign a job to a character and that's it. Here, you actually really get to decide what your characters are going to do, and that level of customization is always cool, and it's something that's even in games nowadays. Like in Baldur's Gate 3, you can really customize each one of the characters. But in Final Fantasy V, this feels rather rudimentary, and it feels like they were a little just too ahead of the times, and technology or really game design in general wasn't ready to catch up. See, you can customize your party, you can assign them jobs, but what the game doesn't tell you is that a bunch of jobs actually suck, and that some jobs and combinations are just way better than other ones. I don't expect it to be the most balanced, but the unbalancing is just ridiculous in this game, and if you don't build your party out with at least a few half-decent jobs, the game is going to become extremely difficult for you, and you're going to have to go back and grind to then get a better job to a decent level so that then, you can actually just progress through the game. While it does encourage experimentation, the game also very much lets you fail, and it's like, oh, you chose a bunch of these jobs and they all suck, well, the game's going to be super difficult for you, good luck. And on the one hand, it's like, yes, this is how games used to be, you could very much be shit out of luck, but on the other hand, that's just not really fair now, is it? How was I supposed to know what the good and bad jobs are? I didn't look it up beforehand, I didn't think I had to look it up, and I actually wanted to experiment with a bunch of the jobs, but unfortunately a bunch of the ones I experimented with sucked, and the game became super difficult and grindy, and I found myself just grinding for an eternity to get the better jobs to a good level. The game became stupid difficult around the halfway mark, and I finally just looked up what some of the best jobs are because I just was not making any headway on my own. I guess I wasn't experimenting all that well, but I also shouldn't have to look up what the best jobs are. Like, come on now. And once you know what the best jobs are and you start focusing on them, the game becomes like stupid easy. I had no problem with it once I actually spec'd into the jobs that were hella good, and so yeah, there's just a level of imbalance here that I don't really care for. At the end of the day, I think this is a decent RPG, but it's not one that I particularly enjoyed all that much, and I'm certainly not clamoring to come back to it. Oh boy, so here's another one to get me in some hot water with Borderlands 1. Now, I think Borderlands 1 is good, and it was a pretty good start to the series overall. But if we're being honest here, which I try to be in all of my videos, I never really enjoyed it all that much, and coming back to it after playing several other Borderlands games, yeah, I really wasn't having a good time with this one. And it's not necessarily because I think it's a bad game. The original Borderlands has tons of great things to it. The gunplay and loot system is still pretty decent. The story at times has its moments. It did introduce all of the characters, and at the end of the day, it did create the blueprint that the rest of the series would use. But there are plenty of things I've never really cared for about the original game. I've never been big on this game's plot. I don't think most people are. The characters, yeah, they have a little bit of a personality and the occasional silly or memorable moment, but for the most part, they're just kind of there. They weren't as established as they would be in later games, for better or for worse. And the ending is just downright atrocious. But when it comes to the actual gameplay, man, the pacing has always felt so sluggish in this game. The beginning of this game is slow. It is glacial, especially compared to legit any other Borderlands game. The quests you get at the beginning of the game, really throughout most of the game, are just not very exciting. Go here, kill these people, come back. Go here, kill these people, collect this thing, come back. And you could say that's pretty much the entire series when it comes to quests, but in basically every other Borderlands game, they've made it more interesting anything than this. The level design is flat, unexciting, and doesn't do anything you haven't seen before. The open world, while it's certainly not bad, I wouldn't say it's very good either. It's just flat, unexciting, and kinda dull. And then the role-playing elements are also kind of dull. You have to be level 5 before you can even use your ability, and that takes a minute, and your ability has such a long cooldown at first that you likely aren't even using it every fight, and it takes a while before the combat really gets going. I would say by the midpoint, it finally starts to pick up. I think every other Borderlands game has much better progression and pacing than the original. I've said this story before, but the first time I actually played Borderlands 1, I dropped it like 3 or 4 hours in because I was just kind of falling asleep. I thought it was so unexciting. And it wasn't until many years later, after 2 and pre-sequel were out, that I went back to the original and actually played through the entire game. And I played through it cooperatively, which made it a little bit more exciting, but it still at times felt like an absolute slog to get through. At times the game even felt like a bit of a chore, especially those side quests. This game has just like some of the most uninteresting generic side quests of any RPG from this era. But I think I'm gonna stop there. I've probably upset enough people already. Look, I love Borderlands. I still think Borderlands 1 is a good game. I just think, yeah, all the other Borderlands games are better. So here we got another oldie with Dragon Quest II. I do want to clarify I played the Switch version of Dragon Quest II that came out in the late 2010s, not the remake and not the original NES version. I do hope to try the remake eventually though. Now Dragon Quest II was very experimental. It was innovative for JRPGs in a lot of different areas. And I know for a lot of people it is a beloved JRPG, but I just didn't really enjoy a lot of my time with it. There were things I certainly enjoyed about it. It very much does have that Dragon Quest charm. The music is decent, and it very much has that Dragon Quest aesthetic feel and battle system. But unfortunately, this game is super dated in a bunch of ways that just made it really unenjoyable for me. First off, with this being an old school JRPG, you know this shit's gonna be grindy as hell. You're gonna be grinding so much in this game, and if you don't grind for hours on end, you're never going to get anywhere. Your base stats just aren't going to be strong enough. And it's as shrimple as that, so obviously that's not the most enjoyable, but a bit expected. Something else though that I didn't really enjoy about this game is just how cryptic and unclear it is at times. It's not really all that obvious where you're supposed to go next, and oftentimes you're given pretty much the entire map to explore with very little direction. There might have been a line or two of text as to some clue where you're supposed to go next, but without a walkthrough, you're going to be just wandering around a very long time. And wandering gets really annoying thanks to the game's very high encounter rate, but hey, at least you'll get the grinding done. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone here, right? No, that's not it. It's more like 2 layers of tedium compounding each other, and then once you figure out where you're supposed to go and you get into the game's dungeons, it's not all that much more enjoyable either. The game's dungeons are very tedious, they are long, they are confusing, and at times they just feel kind of endless, especially towards the end of the game. They just take forever to get through, and I just found myself getting more annoyed than anything else, especially at the end of the game where the enemies really start hitting like a truck and they can whip your ass. Even if you do all of the grinding, you know why? They'll put you to sleep, they'll use all these crazy status effects, and you find yourself just sitting there unable to do anything and they all kick the shit out of you. This is, again, a bit more emblematic for old school JRPGs, but that doesn't mean that it isn't annoying, and by the end of this game, I was just done with it all and really wanted to move on. There were plenty of things I enjoyed, but man, this game also pissed me the fuck off at times, which is why I'm really curious about that remake. I'm still pretty unfamiliar how much of a remake it actually is, but there's no way it's as archaic as that original game, right? So the next one we have here is one that I've certainly gotten flack for throughout the years, and that is Hexen. Now, if you don't remember Hexen, it is an old school first-person shooter that was very much called a Doom clone when it released. And while it very much does look like Doom, it really does have its own identity, and I also don't like it anywhere near as much as Doom. And the game has plenty of good to it. You get to choose between a few different classes, you get some really awesome weapons, and the combat actually is pretty fun in this game. It all feels good and it's rather satisfying. It also looks nice and has a pretty cool aesthetic to it, but unfortunately, at least in my opinion, this game just gets fucking ruined by the level design. I hate the level design. Like, what in tarnation is this level design? So in Doom, you very much go from linear level to linear level, and that's it. You never go back to any of the levels. In Hexen, instead it's these hub areas that feature several levels, and you'll frequently have to go back and forth between these levels, getting keys, activating switches, and solving basic puzzles that unlock doors in other areas. And while this doesn't sound inherently terrible, in fact there are tons of Metroidvanias that take this approach, the game just doesn't really give enough explanation or context to what the hell you're doing. For instance, in like level 3, you'll activate a switch that changes something in the first area. And it's like, how on earth could I have known that without a walkthrough or just wandering around for ages? And this isn't an isolated issue. This happens throughout the entire game. And the longer you play it, the worse it gets, because that just means there's more areas that you could backtrack to where a certain door might be unlocked or a bridge goes down or something like that. And if you take a break from this game for just even a few days, are you really going to remember some door that was locked 3 levels back? I sincerely doubt it, and so you're probably going to have to get the walkthrough out. The level design, the puzzles, and this entire approach to the overall game design just ruined it for me. Like, it ruined the pacing. I had to constantly be looking at a walkthrough just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Every key I pick up, every switch I activate, I gotta be checking the walkthrough to see where it goes. If you're somebody like me who jumps between games and is never just playing through one game at once, you'll get so lost and confused in this game. Genuinely, there are not many games that have gotten me this lost before. It was pretty astounding. And you might be going, and you're saying it's great? A lot of people really seem to love Hexen. I have had a lot of pushback. A lot of people tell me, hey, it's great. The level design is actually great. There's so many innovations to the FPS genre. The level design is nowhere near as bad as you're making it. The game features plenty of other great elements. You just suck at the game, the end lol. Maybe I do suck at the game and it totally is just a skill issue here, but I just didn't really enjoy a lot of my time with it. I know there was a Hexen Heretic remaster by Night Dive Studios, and I have a feeling that they made it a lot more clear where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do. I've never actually seen anything on these remasters because at this time I have no desire to replay the game. Like, I played enough of Hexen and Heretic, and I'm not coming back. They got plenty of good things about them, but man, I was lost. So here's one that might upset some people with Code Vein. Now, I played Code Vein many years ago, and maybe this is one I can revisit and I'll have some different opinions on, but I remember just not really enjoying Code Vein for the most part, but I still think it's a decent game. I just had some personal gripes with it. It was a more than solid enough Souls-like, and it actually had a bunch of great elements to it. It has one of the best creative characters I've ever seen. You can have so much detail, it's unreal. The game absolutely does have its moments, it does have some really cool boss fights, and the combat can be pretty decent. But despite all of this, there was still a few things that I just didn't really care for. I'll immediately say I was playing this on Xbox One, so your mileage may vary, but this game's presentation really never did it for me. Not only do I just not really care for how it looks aesthetically and visually, but the game just kind of ran terribly also. It was a constant 20, maybe 25 FPS the entire time, and sometimes it would dip down to almost single digits. It was ridiculous. So I'm sure if I played through it again on PC, it would be a lot better in that aspect. But you know what's not going to be a lot better, at least for me? The story and just the general gameplay. I could not care what was happening in this story. It just felt super tropey, generic, and uninteresting. It just was not hitting with me, and I just went... I was looking like Patrick when Squidward plays E minor out here. And then the gameplay, yeah, it seemed competent enough. I mean, the combat was certainly there. It has some cool elements to it, but I just wasn't really ever head over heels for it. And then the game was surprisingly easy. Yeah, outside of like one boss fight, I remember just being kind of stunned with how easy it was. Maybe it's because Souls-likes weren't dime a dozen back then, but like every Souls-like was pretty difficult. Even the shitty first Lords of the Fallen was difficult. Code Vein though, again, outside of that one fight towards the end of the game, I don't remember ever having like any issues with the difficulty. And then the level design, it was just kind of there. It didn't particularly wow me, impress me, or excite me in any way. But I remember despite all of this, I actually did play through the entire game. I did finish it, and by the time I was done with it, I just went, huh, I didn't really enjoy that all that much. I feel like I could have played so many other Souls-likes that were way better. I remember at the time I had just played Bloodborne, and I was like, dude, Bloodborne was like significantly better in every single aspect. Maybe I just came to this one with the wrong mindset, or I was in the wrong headspace, or I just wasn't in the Souls-like mood at the time, but this one just didn't resonate with me, and I know a lot of people actually very much enjoyed Code Vein. I know it's getting a sequel, and I'm actually excited for it. I feel like I'm going to try my best to go into this one with the right headspace, and I'm not going to lie, I think that there's a lot of potential for a sequel. There were some cool things in the original game. I think they could really improve on it, and we could have something special, or it's just going to be more of the same. Either way, I'll be checking it out. So here's another one that's sure to upset some folks, but I mean, this entire video has probably upset somebody at some point. So I'm really just continuing the trend here with Castlevania Circle of the Moon. Now, I love the Castlevania series. I've actually been playing through the Metroidvania games over the last few years, and I've been quite enjoying them. But one that I really didn't enjoy a lot of was Circle of the Moon. And it's not because I think the game is bad. No, I still think the game is good and it's a well-made Metroidvania. There were just a few things about it that really just kind of bogged it down for me to the point where I just didn't really enjoy it all that much. First off, as somebody who has played Symphony of the Night, this very much does feel like a bit of a downgrade from that, and you might go, well, it's PS1 to GBA, of course it will. I certainly wouldn't say that about the two other GBA Castlevania games. I'd argue they might even be better than Symphony of the Night if we're being real here. But Circle of the Moon, no, this definitely felt like a step back in a lot of areas. I don't think the level design or the world design is anywhere near as good. And there were plenty of areas that I just wasn't really having a lot of fun with. Something else I didn't really have a lot of fun with was the game's progression. I feel like it is a bit slower, especially compared to other Castlevania games, and it feels like it takes quite a while before you actually have a full moveset. Additionally, I didn't love the game's controls or feel. Double tapping to dash is just awful. I hated this so much. And by the end of it, my thumb was actually killing me. I was like, please end the game. I hate having to do this for the dash. The next thing I don't really care about is the card system, where enemies have a random chance to drop these cards that you can equip as abilities, and then you combine the cards, and this entire thing just falls apart in my opinion because it's basically random what cards you get and when you get them. I'm sure there's certain strategies or exploits in order to get certain cards faster or just get cards faster in general, but I shouldn't have to do that, and unfortunately, due to the random nature, it might be a long ass time before you get some good cards like it was for me. I didn't get good shit until the very end of the game. And so thanks to that, the game's balance was just kinda whack. This game was way more difficult than I expected it to be, and I actually had to do a fair amount of grinding as well. How many other Metroidvanias in this series do you have to do grinding in? Oh, like none of them? Yeah, it was ridiculous I had to do grinding, and I didn't like that. I also didn't like a lot of the boss fights. The boss fights were just kind of ridiculous. They were so spongy and took way too much damage, and they could just wipe the floor with you. I found a lot of these bosses to just be quite tedious. I found the game to start to become quite tedious if we're being real here. And while I think there are plenty of great aspects to the game, I just didn't enjoy a lot of my time with it. I was just kind of ready for it to end. I was tired of the grinding, I wanted better equipment and cards, and I got sick of getting annihilated by these bosses that took forever to beat. But a lot of people really swear by Circle of the Moon. I've even heard some people say Circle of the Moon is one of the very best Castlevania games, period. I very much do disagree with that, but hey, there must be something here that I'm not seeing with it. Either way, there's a lot of other Castlevanias I'd rather play over this. And so to finish things off, we have Evoland. This is a pretty obscure one that I doubt most people remember or have even heard of. I feel like I might be reaching a little too deep with this one. It came out about 12 years ago when the indie throwback scene was not what it is today, and it very much was a throwback to older video game. And it's actually a pretty cool concept. As you're playing through the game, time very much is progressing. When you start the game, it's 8-bit, it's retro as hell, but slowly but surely it becomes 16-bit, 32-bit, eventually it's even in 3D. And the game actually features a bunch of different gameplay styles as well. It's not just one type of gameplay that's evolving graphically. No, the gameplay gets more advanced, there's more moves, it changes to a turn-based RPG, an action RPG. There's a bunch of different gameplay styles here, and I think it's actually a really cool idea. But unfortunately, I just didn't really love this game. I didn't love how it was executed, and maybe it's because I didn't play this when it initially came out, but this felt more like a tech demo than anything else. It felt more like just an idea rather than an entire video game. And the game was only like 2.5 hours long, which further pushed this idea I had in my head. But a lot of people have always gone back to Evoland and said it was such a great idea. It is such a cool concept, and if you go and look on Steam, it's all positive reviews, but I just never really loved the game. I was like, this is a great idea, and this totally feels like missed, wasted potential. Story-wise, the game is a whole lot of nothing. When it comes to the gameplay, it's really nothing special either, and while I like that the game changes things up graphically, I wouldn't say that anything looks particularly good. And I don't mean just the kind of awkward 3D, I mean even the sprite work is just kind of whatever. But you know what makes this a lot better, and honestly just cements my opinion even further is that this game actually got a sequel, Evoland 2, and this sequel does everything I wanted from the original Evoland. It's actually pretty good. It lives up to the potential. It's like a 13 to 15 hour experience. You jump between all the different types of gameplay and graphical styles. It all looks good. The gameplay's more advanced, the story actually means something. No, Evoland 2 is actually a pretty solid game, but the original Evoland, yeah, I don't have a lot of love for this one. I mean, I'm sure it's still got great elements to it, I just failed to see them for the most part. But anyway, that's it for today's video. I'm sure I've pissed off somebody, I've upset someone, and you probably disagree with me somewhere, but you can always let me know down below. Either way, I love you all, hope you all have a wonderful day, I'll see y'all later.